Welcome to part 2 of my solo drive from Auckland to Wellington. So after waking up in this parking lot, which I had found the night before, I started pretty early and got a bit of distance in on my way to Waiatmo Caves. Like I said, New Zealand is on point for breakfast, and I just kept being impressed. I thought it was a one-time thing, but this is the whole country. I stopped at a couple places along the way just because I had the time. The guides did a really cool job getting everyone into what was essentially a dark room, and then they turned on the lights letting you see how deep you were actually going to go, and then you proceed down the spiral ramp into the cave system. While on the tour, they give you a pretty thorough explanation of everything about how the caves formed and how they came to be what they are today. They also give you a little bit of information about these glowing bugs that live inside the cave. The photos don't do it justice, and it's definitely an experience worth doing. There's a few options as far as getting into the cave. Some people can do the rafting one. I chose more of the walking tour because that was just more what I wanted to do and have a chance to kind of stop and look at things along the way. After concluding the tour, I did a little bit of exploration around the caves, and then I started to head to Egmont National Park. There was a really beautiful hike that I had seen pictures of that I wanted to do that ended in a reflection of a mountain in a pool, but things got a little bit weird because I could not find my campsite, and by the time I got there, the entire town seemed to be shut down, so I just booked a motel wherever I could find, and then got a reservation the following night for a location that was a bit more fixed. I tried to keep things loose, but I realized at this part I kind of needed some stable locations to stay, and I didn't want a car camp in some undesignated place, so I went for the hotel. The weather started off really good for me that day, and I did take a lot of great pictures because the sun was shining. However, as I kept going, some clouds came in, and eventually the weather did shift a bit. Now, I was dressed for this, and I had my backpack full of different thermal layers, and I had a windbreaker, so I was ready for the weather. I just was hoping for a slightly better view. How I will say, walking on the boardwalk at the top of this mountain was one of my favorite parts of the trip. I tried. That's a bummer. Still beautiful though. From there, I traveled to the Stratford Mountain House, which is where I was going to be staying before I headed to Wellington the following day. I chose this location just geographically where it was, but it ended up being quite fantastic because once I checked in and kind of got set for a little bit, I realized that there was some hiking trails up above driving up, but this is where I did have to put on the snow chains, and it was really helpful because those tires were not rated for snow, but the chains helped, and I was able to get to the top and do some hikes before heading back for dinner and going to bed. I am content. I was really fortunate because after all the hiking that day, I had picked a hotel just based on where it was, and the hotel turned out to be fantastic accommodations, and they had a restaurant, which was absolutely amazing. I didn't really realize this ahead of time, but New Zealand is a food destination, and I'm sticking to that. Heading out the next morning while rested, I took every opportunity to stop if there was something kind of cool. I found a cafe that was featuring ducks and stuff. Didn't realize it was quite so interactive. Okay. But after the drive, I ended up in Wellington, and this is where I'm going to pick up in my next video. So make sure to subscribe and hit the bell button so you receive notifications as those come out.